when I'm here on the Mount of Olives, I enter this place with Jesus, everything is different, right, than it was all of the other times that he entered Jerusalem. Do you have any sense of why people were so excited this time when they weren't the dozen plus other times Jesus came here? We've walked for days with Jesus in Galilee, but in the end, we knew that the roads would lead here. We're in the city of Jerusalem. Jesus had entered Jerusalem many, many times before Palm Sunday, but there was never an arrival like the arrival we see on Palm Sunday, or as you may know it, the Sunday of Triumphal Entry. There's actually geographical backstory. Like most other Jewish pilgrims from the north, Jesus would have arrived in Jerusalem by using the ridge route, therefore entered the city from the north. But on this trip to Jerusalem, he went out to the east side of the country, to the Jordan River, and actually came through Jericho, through the wilderness, and arrived at Bethany. By doing that, he was enacting the language of Isaiah 40, verses 1 through 5. You'll know you've met the Messiah when you've met someone who comes into the Jerusalem area through the Judean wilderness. He does something really unusual. He gets on the donkey, not at the bottom of the hill at Bethany where I would, but at the top of the hill, and then rides the donkey down the ridge into Jerusalem. Why would he do that? Well, it has to do with what Bethpage is. Bethpage is the eastern city limits for Jerusalem. And by riding the donkey into Bethpage, he is riding the donkey into Jerusalem in fulfillment of Zechariah 9:9. When the Passover pilgrims put together all of those Mount of Olives stories, they got it. The Messiah had come to Jerusalem. The Palm Sunday crowd that welcomed Jesus to Jerusalem used a variety of phrases. The gospel writers give us a sample of what we would have heard. Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our father David. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. They weren't using the same words, but they were looking for the same thing: coronation. Hello. My name's Jack. What's your name? Adam. I want to go to the Gihon Spring. Do you know where the Gihon Spring is? You show me? I'll follow you. Shall we go look? Show me what you found. Ah, yes. There it is. There it is. Water. I'm walking south in the Kidron Valley. Jerusalem's old city is above me and to the right. And behind me is the ridge down which Jesus rose when he rode the donkey into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. He was heading towards the same route that I'm walking now. I've come here to think about an Old Testament story that's associated with this valley in the time of David and Solomon. At the close of David's life, his mental and physical health were deteriorating quite badly, and his advisors were getting concerned about it. Adonijah, his oldest son, decided to take advantage of the situation, and he said, I'm going to use this opportunity to become king myself. Now, he knew that David had already appointed Solomon as his successor, but Adonijah was insistent that he get that job instead of his brother. And so he got together with some of David's advisors and arranged to be crowned king down here in the Kidron Valley in a place called the Gihon Spring. When word got back to David about this, he was not happy, and he immediately went into action. He called for Solomon, and he called for his favorite mule. He then directed his other assistants to put Solomon on that animal, to have him led down the city of David Ridge to another spring here called the Gihon Spring, and it's at that spring that Solomon was crowned king of Israel. Why the people over 1,000 years later were using coronation language at the time that Jesus was riding down the bridge of the Mount of Olives on Palm Sunday. The people were seeing Jesus doing something they had seen before in this place. Solomon's father had put his own son on a mule and sent him down to the Gihon Spring to be crowned king of Israel. The father had provided a donkey for his son, and his son was now riding down the Mount of Olives, what appeared to be in the direction of the Gihon Spring. The symmetry between those two things caught the eyes of the people. And although these two events live more than 1,000 years apart in time and hundreds of pages apart in our Bible, the land brings these two stories together. Now think about this for a moment. Jesus could have simply said, I am the king, the son of David, who will be the Messiah. There's great power in that. But I think it's even more powerful when Jesus enacts an event that leads others to draw that conclusion. Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. This is coronation language, and it's coronation language that's inspired by what happened in this valley before. I find the picture of Jesus as my king to be a very powerful and a very attractive one, because Jesus promises to do in my life what the ancient kings did in the lives of their subjects. He is there to protect me, and he's there to give my life meaningful direction.